Welcome back to another episode of Stand on Guard. Hope you're enjoying your weekend. Beautiful Saturday morning here, September 28th, 2024. The world is still here. We are still here. And when we come back, why there's so many breakdowns going on right now, not only here in Canada, but in the United States and elsewhere. We'll be right back with more. Stay tuned.
So we are in a very precarious position in this country. We need political change, but we also need to resolve to resist.
Yes, please like the station, subscribe if you have. We recently went over our 30,000 subscriber mark, a point we're very proud of. And thank you so much for helping us attain that objective a lot sooner than I think we probably would have. But a lot of people have been telling me this week if it wasn't for YouTube suppression, you'd be at 100,000. That's maybe true. We'll get there despite the YouTube suppression. So while you're thinking of it, while you're thinking of it, share this station, this broadcast with your friends and your family. Let them know what we're doing here, that we're a little bit different because this really is news. We try to give you all the news you need to know so that you can resolve to resist tyranny, which is what we have with Justin Trudeau and what the United States has with the Biden-Harris administration. So we're fighting war on two fronts. But mainly our war is to preserve free speech in Canada. And we continue to do that in whatever way we can. So interesting week in Ottawa. We had the visit by Emmanuel Macron. We talked about that yesterday. A couple of points I have to raise about that. A lot of people saying Trudeau didn't really look like he was dismissing his foreign affairs minister, Melanie Joly, that he was just inviting her to sit down. Well, I don't know. It's hard to say because the clip ended. Certainly, he wanted her out of the picture, but haven't we seen this before with other Liberal cabinet ministers who fall out of favor? I'm not saying Melanie Joly has, but we have certainly seen Trudeau dismiss female cabinet ministers and MPs outright, simply because get out of the picture. I'm more important. So I'm not suggesting he physically pushed her, saying he exercised his male authority to get her out of the picture, and that it flies in the face of his supposed feminism. Just reinforces Trudeau's hypocrisy. That's the only point I was trying to make with that. And no, I don't know if the CTV reporters were literally fired. It doesn't really matter. They've been removed from the newsroom, and journalists don't work anywhere else in a media corporation. They find another job someplace. So, yeah, I think de facto they were fired, whether or not they were literally fired from CTV or Bell Media. They're going to be looking for another job in the media. That's what journalists do. So, I don't know why people were getting hung up on fired yesterday. And the story I wrote for the Post Millennial, I said apparently fired and removed from CTV News. But the point really of the story was that CTV admitted that they've manufactured fake news. They admitted it. The story wasn't really about they fired or didn't fire two employees. It's the fact they admitted that they engaged in manufacturing fake news. I don't know of another media outlet that's actually admitted two of its reporters did it. That's what was significant about the story. And that's what I tried to get across. So, anyway, you want to have some fun today? We're going to have some fun. Saturday, Mark Holland is always a source of amusement for me. The man is baggage with arms and legs attached. He has been a liberal partisan since he entered the House in, I think, 2000. He's been there, 24 years now. And he's one of the most savage partisans. And of course, when he's being interviewed by the mainstream media, he pretends to be exactly the opposite of what and who he is. And I'm not going to play the interview he did with Vasi Capellos on CTV because it's nauseating to listen to this self-righteous man go on about how hard he works for Canada and how much he wants to reach a consensus. And this is why we shouldn't have an election because we have to give the consensus. It's just nauseating. This is Mark Holland at his best. Breakdown time.
Realistically, how long are you going to keep? How long do you think you can keep government, keep controlling government?
Well, look, I think every day you wake up and you continue to make things better for Canadians.
You could have a fall election. It could be a winter election. Is the Liberal Party ready for that? What if you're in an election in a couple months?
I don't even know if I'm going to be alive tomorrow. I said this earlier today. You wake up with the time you're given and do your best.
Can we roll that clip, please, producer? No, we can't. We are waiting. These things happen.
I'm having a nervous breakdown.
Yes. Well, that's Mark Holland's. This is a great scene, of course, from Charade, the 1963 film with Cary Grant and Audrey Hepburn. And what is? And there he is. Yeah. But what does he say? Let's watch it again.
How long do you think you can keep government, keep controlling government?
Well, look, I think every day you wake up and you continue to make things better for Canadians.
You could have a fall election. It could be a winter election. Is the Liberal Party ready for that? What if you're in an election in a couple months?
I don't even know if I'm going to be alive tomorrow. I said this.
What is that? He doesn't know if he's going to be alive tomorrow. Is he expecting sudden death syndrome? Is there a hitman after him? Very, very strange. But here's Mark having another little bit of a breakdown in this scrum on Parliament Hill. And if you've never been in a scrum, they're crazy events where, journalists just sort of gather around the MP or the cabinet minister. And these are the moments when they say really stupid things because they're unscripted.
The strategy from the movie Mean Girls, and this is what we face every day. And so, yeah, it's a very, I really, at the end of the week, and I talk to my partner, and I wonder, well, how do you respond to this? I think we're really having trouble, and sometimes you get frustrated. I don't know. That's what human beings do. I don't know if somebody's screaming and yelling at you and denigrating you and making personal slurs, and they do that all day long, and that's your workplace? Like, what other workplace would this stuff be acceptable? Take a look at their behavior. Now, sometimes I own it. I'm not a perfect person. I make mistakes. Sometimes I overreact. Sometimes I get emotional. But I walk into that place as a servant of the house. And I try to comport myself as such. And I think every Canadian should hold people to that behavior. And you're going to wag the dog, pet the donkey, ride the goat nonsense.
What? Pet the donkey? Is our euthanasia czar trying to come up with a new word in the liberal vernacular here?
Like, what does that stuff even mean? These slogans and nonsense. And then in between, screaming, you're going down. Yeah, that's one we're taking. We got your seat. You're done. Like, what?
Yeah. Poor Mark. He's having a nervous breakdown. It's quite obvious what's going on here. But when in fact we know that Mark Holland's been having a nervous breakdown for many years, and it's just finally spilling out into, as they say. Right. So that is what Mark Holland has always been about. I wanted you to see that at the beginning before we get into the guts of the newscast, as we always like to say. And that, of course, is what's happening with the war in Ukraine. I know we're on the verge of nuclear war, of course, as always, but thank God there's a voice of sanity out there. Now, we know that Zelenskyy has come to Canada, and I'm going to read some portions of this after, but I wrote this column for Human Events. And this, of course, I think sums it up quite well. I'm surprised they used my headline because I thought it was a little bit provocative. I'm intended to be, but sometimes you can be a little too provocative. But I loved it. Zelenskyy has picked the bones clean. Time to tell this freeloading bum that the bank is closed. I am so sick of Zelenskyy landing in his combat gear and suggesting it's time for another $10 billion. Thank you very much. Hands open. Here I go back to Ukraine. Now, you won't know where the money has gone. Probably to your friends, your oligarch friends and your political friends. It'll go into Swiss bank accounts, into your yachts and mansions. And how much is actually going to your war? I don't know. But this is what Zelenskyy is all about. And I'm going to read some of this to you after we watch this incredibly pathetic meeting between Zelenskyy and former President Donald Trump, who he really comes to pay obeisance to. He's not quite sycophantic, but he's on the verge of it because he knows Trump is going to be the next president, and he knows Trump has got no time for him. He knows Trump is not going to be dispensing tens of billions of dollars to the black hole of Kiev anymore. The bank is closed. I actually said this. The bank is closed, and that was in my headline. I think I said that first before anyone else picked up on it this week. The bank is closed. No more tens of billions. Of course, Trudeau, while all this is going on, is saying, "Yeah, let's fire some long-range conventional missiles into Russia and see what happens." Well, you know what's going to happen? A nuclear war is going to erupt. And Trudeau is too stupid and too focused on his talking points to even think about it. So it's quite astounding. But just watch this incredible news conference with former President Donald Trump and dictator Volodymyr Zelenskyy.
Strongest of our soldiers, our people. Of course, it will bring us closer to the peace. We need just peace. We need just peace. It's so important to have just peace for the people, especially for the families who lost their children. It's a big tragedy.
President Trump, have you changed your thoughts on how this war should end, what you think should be done, or do you still stand by some of the previous statements?
Well, I learned a lot, but I think I haven't changed from the standpoint that we both want to see this end, and we both want to see a fair deal made, and it's got to be fair, and I think that'll happen at the right time. I think it's going to happen. The president wants it to end, and he wants it to end as quickly as possible. He wants a fair transaction to take place, and I think, right now I'm campaigning, so right now I don't have much to do with it other than we're doing very well in terms of the campaign, and I've been saying that I believe if I win, we're going to have a very fair and I think actually rather rapid deal. It should stop, and the president wants it to stop, and I'm sure President Putin wants it to stop. And that's a good combination. So we want to have a fair deal for everybody.
What do you envision as fair?
Well, it's too early to say that. I mean, I have my own ideas, and I'm sure the president definitely has his own ideas, but it has to be fair.
This war shouldn't be started, and I think that the problem that Putin...
See, if you look in Zelensky's face, the realization that it's over. This game, this charade, that I have been playing now for 2.5 years of being the Winston Churchill of Ukraine. It's over. No, Trump hasn't bought it for a long time. J.D. Vance, his vice presidential running mate, has explicitly stated no more money for Ukraine. This is ridiculous. We got to end this war before it becomes a nuclear confrontation. A nuclear war. It is a nuclear confrontation. And so we're on the verge of a nuclear war with this. And this idiot has got us there, because he just continually wants to keep the war going, no matter how many, hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians have died in this war. The graveyards are full. And yet, as they continue to take weapons from the United States, Canada, and other NATO countries, they're selling their own weapons on the world market. I did a story on this for Human Events. It's absolutely astounding what these guys are up to.
Killed so many people, and of course we need to do everything to pressure him to stop this war. And he's on our territory. That is the most important to understand. He's on our territory, and how to stop the war, to pressure him as we can, as we can. We have to do it.
And do you think the U.S. is the best?
U.S. is the leader. U.S. is the leader of support. U.S. is the leader in the world, and of course we value the support of the United States. We're thankful to the United States, the people of America, and of course we understand that United States can be the leader through any negotiation. You know that we have the peace summit, and we want to organize the second one, and we count on this.
I know you're both in a rush. Last question. Will there be another meeting in the near future between you?
Could very well happen, but I think the president said it the best. This is a war that should have never happened. It should have never happened, and it wouldn't have happened. It's a shame, but this is a war that should have never happened, and we'll get it solved. It's a complicated puzzle, very complicated puzzle, but we'll get it solved, and people get on with their lives. Too many people dead. Too many beautiful cities. I've seen those cities. They're so beautiful, and they, I don't know how you can ever rebuild them the way they were. It's not possible.
You have to come, by the way, to see our city.
I will. It's a beautiful country, beautiful weather, beautiful everything. But we have to get this over with. But it's a war, and the president agrees. This is a war that should have never happened. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
This is a war that should have never happened. And of course, this is all about Zelenskyy hoping he can get something out of a Trump administration, which I think the dawning realization for him is that, yes, there will be a Trump administration to deal with. No more Biden-Harris handouts. It's just not going to happen anymore. And he's going to have to deal with a Ukraine post-war, which of course will be vastly different than constantly pretending he's going to win this war. He's already lost the war. The war is over. As so many people have pointed out to me, he's on life support. Not him, but Ukraine is on life support in this war. Thank you to NATO and United States have kept this war going to the point where we're almost at the brink of nuclear war. Over Ukraine, this is absolutely ridiculous. There's no reason for this to continue. And thank God, Donald Trump has become the only voice of sanity. You remember how people thought he's going to get us into a war? That was the main argument by crooked Hillary Clinton in 2016. Don't vote for Donald Trump. He's going to get us into a war. And ironically, it's been Hillary Clinton who gets the United States into every war. She supported every foreign war the United States has been involved in, and she started her own while she was Secretary of State under Barack Obama. But don't trust Trump. He's going to get us into war. Actually, Trump wants to get us, meaning NATO, out of a potential war and get Ukraine and Russia to stop fighting so they can actually talk sense. Let's get back to a world that focuses on peace, prosperity, and trading. But there's only one group of people on the face of the earth who want this war to continue unabated because they're making billions of dollars in profits, just as they did in the First World War and so many and other conflicts around the world. They make billions, tens, hundreds of billions of dollars off human carnage. I'm ex-military. I wore a uniform not so we could keep having wars because politicians wanted them, but we could not have wars because there is peace through strength. But that doesn't mean we keep stockpiling nuclear weapons. That's what the Reagan-Gorbachev peace talks were all about. But we somehow have lost our course, haven't we? We have lost the consensus that we need to reduce armaments and we need to not go into a nuclear war because it's unthinkable and it's unwinnable. But that's not what happened. I've mentioned this so many times, I don't want to go on about it ad nauseum. But just before Zelenskyy met with Trump, of course, he was at a munitions plant in Scranton, Pennsylvania. This is the imaginary hometown of Joe Biden. Every time Joe Biden wants to sound folksy, yeah, I grew up in Scranton, Pennsylvania. And nobody there really wants to acknowledge that. But here's Zelenskyy visiting a munitions plant, which is making the shells, the howitzer shells that Ukraine is using on the battlefield. And of course, the battlefield is swallowing these things up. And this is an all Democratic show in Scranton. There's the mayor is Democrat. The senator there is Democrat. The governor there is Democrat. The representative in the House of Representatives is a Democrat. Not a single Republican there. This is a campaign event for Kamala Harris. This is how sick this is. Give the guy some more munitions and let's make a campaign event. Why is foreign, as I say in this column, why is foreign interference only wrong if it's perceived to be for the Republicans or Donald Trump? And there was no foreign interference for Donald Trump. He had nothing going with Russia. There was no Russian collusion. It was a hoax. But there's certainly collusion between the Biden administration and Zelenskyy. Zelenskyy is actively campaigning for the re-election of the Democrats through Vice President Kamala Harris. That's why he came to the U.S. Not to share a peace plan. He's got no or actually he calls it a victory plan. There's no victory for Ukraine in this, but there is potentially peace. And that's what has to be emphasized. But it's interesting. If you look at who really wants this war to continue, it's the military-industrial complex, something I used to talk about but never really believed existed. But my God, just look at how real it is. They pay off these congressmen and these senators to keep the wars going because they are making huge profits from the bloodshed and deaths of millions of individuals around the world. And they always have. And you know what? One of the companies who is investing in the rebuilding of Ukraine after the war is over, the reconstruction of Ukraine that they helped destroy, is J.P. Morgan. Guess who J.P. Morgan wanted to win the First World War because they had loaned a lot of money to Great Britain. So J.P. Morgan went to Woodrow Wilson, President Woodrow Wilson in 1917 and said, we got to get into this war because I've got billions of dollars invested in Great Britain and I want that money back. And the military-industrial complex always phrases things that way. It's about the bottom line. It's about my money. I want my money. So watch this. Here's Zelenskyy signing missiles. These are 155 millimeter howitzer missiles used in long cannons. And here he is. Here's the governor, Shapiro of Pennsylvania, a Democrat, signing along, and Zelensky's just beaming. Yeah. While you're doing this, well, I'll be selling my arms on the global market. And that's exactly what he's doing. He's selling Ukrainian arms on the global market while he's picking up U.S. arms for nothing. This is enough just to make you rich. This is what we're dealing with, though. This is how corrupt. And here, his good buddy, Justin Trudeau. He just, these two can't say enough about each other. They just love each other. And of course, Trudeau wants Ukraine,
ladies and gentlemen, and allow us to start our today's meeting between the President of Ukraine and the Prime Minister of Canada with an award ceremony. By decree of the President of Ukraine for outstanding personal contribution into strengthening interstate cooperation, supporting state sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine, the Order of Freedom is awarded to Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada.
Did you know Justin Trudeau won an award from Ukraine for what? Being one of the most sycophantic countries in the world in terms of the Ukrainian demands for money and arms? Trudeau's always up there, and we're with you until the end, for as long as it takes. Yeah, as long as we have a single dollar in Canada to give you, we'll be there. But I mean, this is just absolutely disgusting.
Great honor for me.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, you can put that on your wall.
President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelenskyy.
And for a lot more things that you did with your team and with all the Canadians, thank you so much. Thank you for your support and big help. You're a great friend of us.
Thank you, Vladimir, but I accept this only on behalf of all Canadians who have been as steadfast as you would want. We support you. We stand with you in this fight that is your fight, but that is all of our fight for democracy, for sovereignty, for territorial integrity. This is an honor, and I accept it, but I want you to know how steadfast we will continue to be, and all Canadians are with you.
And yes, Canada full.
So there you go. Justin got his award. And it's about a war to make the world safe for democracy, right? Yeah. Except Zelensky's a dictator who did not submit to a vote earlier this year, said cancel the elections because the war is on. He's a dictator. He's corrupt. Everybody in his cabinet and the oligarchs in Kiev are getting paid very well from the money that we are sending them. If this is a farce, and I would just say it's a farce unless so many hundreds of thousands of innocent people weren't dying.
Fully supports Ukraine using long-range weaponry to prevent and interdict Russia's continued ability to degrade Ukrainian civilian infrastructure and mostly to kill innocent civilians in their unjust war.
So here's the strategic military expert, Justin Trudeau, holding forth about how he believes it would be completely justified to allow Ukraine to use NATO-owned weapons, largely from the United States or Great Britain, to attack Russia. Despite, does Trudeau even read the news that doesn't concern him? Russian President Vladimir Putin said this week that they have changed the nuclear doctrine in Russia, that they will retaliate with nuclear weapons if they are attacked by conventional missiles. And an attack by Ukraine will be viewed as an attack by NATO if those missiles are owned by a Western nation belonging to NATO. So that means NATO will be at war because this is how the alliance system crumbles, just like in the First World War. Russia says, you're all attacking me because you're all a member of NATO. So if one member of NATO is counterattacked by Russia with nuclear arms, all of NATO is at war, according to Article 5 of the NATO Constitution. The foundational document of NATO says an attack on one member state is an attack at all. So this is how the alliance system begins to crumble, and how it's like a deck of cards that falls, but also like dominoes, because it immediately, one action necessitates another action, which necessitates another action. So therefore, we will all be at war because Justin Trudeau is too stupid to realize that will be the consequence. That is what is going to happen if we shoot missiles into Russia, because they've changed their nuclear doctrine. Russia always disavowed a nuclear first strike, going way back to the Cold War years. This is a fundamental change in nuclear doctrine from Russia. How stupid is Justin Trudeau to realize this is going to mean a whole change in military strategy? But he doesn't know a damn thing about military strategy, so he just keeps flapping his gums. This is the result of the war. These are graves in Ukraine, hundreds of thousands of them around the country. That is the legacy of this war. That is the legacy of all wars. And you have to have a pretty damn good reason to wage one. It really does have to be about world freedom. And this war is not, has never been about making the world safe for democracy.
We also have French President Emmanuel Macron is coming to Canada. That's going to be another peas in a pod there. It's amazing to me, the wildly unpopular French President Macron is coming to meet with Justin Trudeau, I guess, to try to bolster support in Canada. This is hilarious. I mean, is Macron well liked in Canada at all? What's the thinking here? I've seen the U.S. press calling it the Obama effect, like they're hoping that a little bit of that love from Emmanuel Macron will rub off on Trudeau.
I'm certainly not seeing any indication of this outpouring of affection for Emmanuel Macron.
Monsieur Macron, est-ce que tu vas aller payer la dette d'indépendance à Haïti? Tu vas repayer Haïti? C'est quand que la France va repayer Haïti? La dette d'indépendance, 40 milliards de dollars, Monsieur Macron. Quand vous allez repayer cette dette d'indépendance?
Yeah, it doesn't look like an outpouring of affection to me either. So let that be. Let that be the legacy of Macron's visit. And that really is quite sad. I want to leave this with you, though, the final slide. That's what the visit was all about. That's what Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's visit to the Scranton Army Munitions Factory was all about. And that's what it's officially called, by the way. The people behind him represent the military-industrial complex who are making millions of dollars supporting that military-industrial politicians who get money from the military-industrial complex. And who are they? Raytheon, Boeing, General Dynamics, McDonnell Douglas. All these corporations that make lots of money off of wars. And who is Zelenskyy? He's the puppet, signing the checks. And that's what this war is all about. And that's who's behind Zelenskyy here. So that's our journey for today. Thank you so much for joining me on this Saturday. I hope you have a great weekend. And I hope you have time to spend with your families. And by the way, yesterday I learned a lesson. Don't ever put fake news in your title, because that story I did. I was one of the first people to report on that statement. CTV owning up to the fact that two of its reporters produced fake news. I was one of the first reporters to actually do that story. And I was one of the first independent journalists to put the story on YouTube. And we got very few views on that. Very few. That story was suppressed. They sat on that story. More than suppressed. YouTube sat on that story. Other people were getting huge reviews, huge views on that story after I put mine out, because they apparently had learned the semantic rule about don't say fake news. It is a game at times. And it just amazes me how when you think you know the game, they change the rules on you. So thank you so much for watching today, folks. We really appreciate your indulgence at times. And we appreciate you supporting the station in whatever way you can. But please subscribe. And as I said, share this station with your friends and family. Let's keep moving upwards with those subscriptions. And thank you for your kind comments and your constructive ones. I read them. And when you say something that's constructive, I appreciate it. And I move on with it. And it does help to improve the quality of this broadcast. So we'll be back again tomorrow. Yeah, it's 7 days a week here. We'll be back again tomorrow with all the news that you need to know.